Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video from Saints.soaps. Today I'm going to be sharing with you the exciting challenge I set for myself to make an all-natural soap using ingredients I haven't used before. This soap was inspired specifically by the artist Pablo Picasso and his 1909 painting titled The Seated Nude. In this video I've decided to talk more and kind of let my thoughts run so you can get an idea of my thought process. So let's dive in and have some fun. So for this soap, on the day that I made it, I had made some fresh live water and allowed it to cool to room temperature, and then added it into also my cool to room temperature oils. I have my usual mix of both hard and soft oils that I've mixed together, and I really wanted to make sure, because I was using ingredients that I hadn't normally used in this soap before, that I really wanted to make sure that when I blended it together that I left it as liquidy as possible. It's always really hard for me when I blend my soaps to not overblend it, because for such a long time when I first started soap making, I was using a blender, stick blender, which actually wasn't very powerful, and then I got this Kenwood blender and it's like a regular good powered one, so all of a sudden I was accidentally over blending because I didn't need to blend as much. I need to remember that you can blend it so it's blended together and starts to emulsify, but then you will be additionally blending the soap batter as you add colorants and fragrance oils. And especially fragrance oils can sometimes have that effect of thickening a mixture, or if you're lucky, it may thin out the mixture. So I was almost a bit paranoid. I was like really trying to keep an eye on that. So right now I'm starting to split the mixture up. I'm trying to decide, because I kind of winged it when I kind of designed the soap. I kind of had a vague idea of what I wanted, but I didn't realize how much I wanted for the main body of the soap and then the different color on top. But I've decided to, you'll see me every now and then kind of like pouring a little bit extra or not. And now it's time to use the indigo powder. This natural indigo powder I got from a friend that I made at working medieval fairs. Her name is Dom, and she owns her own store called DAHAD. So with her shop, she provides historically accurate textiles and also the natural dyes that would have been used to dye the textiles different colors. I did a lot of research and talk with her as well about using indigo in soap. Indigo has been used in soap before, and it still is used in soap. It is not harmful or toxic at all when used on the outside of the body. It can be integrated into soap in numerous ways. Here you can see I just put some of the powder directly into the soap and mixed it in. You can also infuse oil with indigo and it dyes the oil. I am planning on bringing out a video soon about the infusing of oils that I've been working on, and one of those oils I infuse is indigo. So you do have to be careful with indigo because it is such a strong color that you don't accidentally put too much into the soap, because you could end up staining the skin. The reason that I put the powder straight into the soap here, the soap batter, was because, to be honest, I was experimenting. This was the first time I'd done it, but also I didn't want it to be too vibrant and navy blue. Here it's a lovely kind of muted blue, almost has a grey tone to it, which I really wanted, which matches that Picasso painting. In the bottle I have the exact amount of lime essential oil that I need, and I'm just like eyeing it when I put the amount, when I separate it, portion it into the different containers of soap batter that I have. When I first smelt the lime essential oil, I was surprised. I expected it to be really strong, like lemon would be, but I should have expected it to be more muted, as it is, because just like the lime fruit compared to the lemon fruit is, it's not as strong and acidic. So it's a really nice, it is a bright scent, but yeah, it's not as strong. So I really liked it and how different. It's a bit of an odd combo you would expect with like the colors and things like that, but I feel like it really went. Now out comes the little tiny cubes of soap that are coloured with activated charcoal. These are unscented, so they won't clash at all with the soap batter. The reason I'm using my scale here is because before measuring out all my ingredients for the soap batter, I actually subtracted a certain amount, a couple of 100 grams I believe, so that when I added the soap cubes it would bring the volume of the soap batter up to the original calculation. So this way I don't just have the whole massive amount of soap batter and I'm adding extra mass to it and then creating more soap than the mold can hold. There's not going to be a lot of wastage at all. I usually find sometimes tends to be a little bit left over. I can either fit it on top of the soap, or if not, I do put it into smaller molds, which I then use for other soaps, or I sell them as little imperfect soaps on my site at a cheaper price. But in this instance, especially when I'm adding embeds like this large amount of soap cubes, I do my best to try and take that into account. So I'm just using my spatula to carefully mix them through. I don't need the blender to really finely blend this. I think the blender would like damage and choke up on all the little cubes, to be honest. But now that it's all kind of mixed through properly, I'm now going to pour it into the mold and then hopefully see if it's going to be at a thick enough consistency for putting on that top layer. I'm really happy with the consistency that the soap has poured at. As you can see, it didn't pour like water, but more like the consistency of pouring custard or something like that. That means that while I prepare the second part of the soap, this will continue to set up, meaning that when I pour the next part of the soap on top, it's not going to fall through the indigo layer. While usually you can use that as a technique to create a drop swirl where the top layer will drop through the bottom and create a pattern, I don't want this for the soap. While it will still have organic lines, it's not going to be like ruler straight, clean lines. I did want it to keep it separate layers. Here I'm just using the stick blender to quickly like move around inside the soap that's been sitting still while I prepared the indigo layer, just to make sure it returns to a more liquid state. The organic beetroot powder which I have comes from Sunrise Botanicals, and I really enjoy all of the products which I've gotten from them so far. They come in a variety of different sizes and they're like a really good price as well. This is my first time using the beetroot powder, and so I loved the rusty kind of red color that it gave it. While this color isn't really found in the Picasso color palette of the painting I've chosen to be inspired by for this soap, I thought that it would be a nice addition as it would be complementary to the blues and the greys of the soap. But as we're about to find out, the colors kind of decided to do a magic trick on their own and like change up a small amount. As we can see, it doesn't maintain the vibrancy in its large powdered form that I had it in the bag. So it kind of came off more as like a kind of a strange paley brown, like with a bit of a red tint in it, which is a great color. Not gonna lie, it's a great color, but it definitely wasn't the red that I wanted. So I just decided to leave it at that, because with that small amount that I had in the container, I didn't want to overmix the soap. I did find that using the lime essential oil, that it did make the soap return to a more liquid state, which was great for pouring. But that's something I'm always very aware of, is that when you do separate your batter into smaller amounts, be very careful not to overbeat. One of the reasons also for not overbeating small amounts is when you go to pour it, it can become very difficult. But I was so thankful here that I didn't overbeat it or overmix the soap. And as I pat it down with my spatula, I really enjoy patting it down. It's like really satisfying, like that when you bounce the spatula. It's very liquidy, more liquidy than the indigo level was, which is fine because nothing else is being added on top of this, etc. And it just allowed me to create a more smooth, even surface as I poured and leveled it out. So later on we're going to see again, when I eventually cure the soap a bit and cut it, that the top of the soap, the beetroot layer, it's a tan brown now. I would call it like a tan kind of brown color. It actually lightened even further, which was great. It had a really cool effect in it with the little speckles of the beetroot throughout it. But I decided that I would then also experiment infusing oil with the beetroot to see if that would provide more of a stain, like a dye, the color in the soap, or if it really couldn't be used effectively like that. Now for the top of the soap, I kind of forgot. I was like, hey, is it just going to be a plain top, or am I going to add a pattern or a texture? And I decided to give the good old fork method a go. So I believe this is the first time that I've used a fork like this on the top of my soap. I've seen a lot of other soap makers do it, like on Instagram, and it was really cool. And I thought, seeing as I didn't have a separate decoration to add to the top, I wasn't adding icing to the top of the soap, that this could be a cool excuse for me to experiment. So before showing this part of the recording, I had given it a try, but had found that the top was still a bit too soft, too liquidy. I feel like that's my word, liquidy. I wonder how many times I've said it in my soap videos. That the top was too soft, it was too liquidy to hold the shape or the texture of the fork. So I just waited for a few more minutes and then gave it another go, and eventually it did hold up. This texture consistency is really nice for running the fork prongs through it, because it's not going to gouge giant craters or holes too deep into the surface of the soap. The soap does kind of come back together a little bit, but it does leave the pattern in there. So at this point, I'm about to slice the soap up and see what the inside looks like. I usually let my soap loaves sit for approximately 2 days before I slice them. I do find that means they're still soft enough for me to cut, but they do hold their shape. I used to be very paranoid that I was leaving my soap to sit for too long, like I had to cut them 18 hours or 24 hours after I had made them, because doing a lot of research, you watch a lot of other soap makers' videos and listen to them, etc., and a lot of them were leaving them for shorter amounts of time. But I have learned that it's completely up to you how long you leave it, and you have to take into account the materials that you've used, the ingredients you've used in the soap that you've made. Because depending on the amount of soft oils and hard oils, things like that, will depend on how quickly your soap sets up and is just the right hardness or softness for you to slice. I found that if I was taking it out too early, I was often leaving like finger impressions on the outside of my soaps as I was holding the loaf, cutting it. But at about 2 days, it's just right. I'm not leaving any indentations on the soaps, and the soap isn't mushy, it's not going to fall apart. And as you can see, it brings out the colors and the shape nice and bright. That's also something I was a little worried about if I start to cut my soap and even stamp my soaps and they're not solid enough, is that sometimes the colors can smear. They can drag across the other parts of the colors, and as you can see here, I'm not being consistent and cleaning my wire between each cut, but even by not doing that consistently, the blue of the indigo has not dragged through the white of the beetroot powder, which is great. And here is another little section of my video I've decided to consistently add in, which is a little sped up recording of me trimming the edges off my soaps. So for the longest time, I had not been doing that at all. I was kind of like, it's soap, it doesn't matter, I don't need to trim it off, it's just a waste if I trim it, and a waste of time, and that's extra work, and etc., all these kind of excuses. And then I watched a lot of other soap makers do trim their soaps. Not everyone does, and you don't have to. There's nothing saying you have to do that, but I noticed that I was like, you know what, I'm gonna give it a go. And once I did, like, it's one of my favorite parts, like the slicing of the soap and the trimming of the soap and the stamping of the soap. It's like kind of therapeutic. It's like really fun. So I just get to sit there, put some music on, or I even have a TV show playing on my computer nearby, and I'll listen to it and watch it out of the corner of my eye. But I personally found that I really like to trim the edges of my soaps now, because I feel like it just makes it look just that bit more polished. I will continue to do that, I feel, as long as I am able to and I find it efficient, that it's not, if I start producing soap on a much larger scale and it gets too out of hand and I don't have time to do that, then maybe something I have to cut out, but for now, I'm going to keep it in. And here are my beautiful finished soaps. I really love how these turned out. The beetroot turned a lot whiter, as we can see, but up close they do continue to have the little speckles of the beetroot powder throughout it. I love the muted indigo color that came out, and the pieces of the activated charcoal soap that are throughout it as well. I mean, I guess that's more of a direct connection to the cubist, the cubist painting of Picasso that we've chosen, but yeah, it still worked. It has that angular look to it. I'm so happy that I got to share this with you guys. I hope you enjoyed watching this and listening to my rambling a bit more about my thought process behind my soap making. Don't forget to like and subscribe, show me some support, and also keep up to date with my videos. Have a great day, guys, and I'll talk to you later.